So, did Elon Musk win his war on Apple? That's the question that I'm really interested in. Because, of course, this comes after Elon Musk purchases Twitter, causes a lot of kerfuffle. Lots of people had their jimmy severely rustled, and they were, lots of rumours were going around. And so Elon Musk basically declared war on Apple. Is that right? That seems important. The richest man on the planet going after one of the biggest businesses in the planet.
The biggest business, I think.
Is it the biggest?
I think so.
I
the
thought
most
Google
valuable.
might have been bigger. But
no, Apple's worth more.
Right.
I think maybe Saudi Aramco might be worth more, and maybe the People's Army of China or something like that. But I think in terms of public companies,
second
Apple
only
is
to the
richest.
NHS, basically.
It's in terms of public companies, Apple
massive.
is the most valuable company in the world.
Right. Okay, but before we go on, right, I think this is a good framing for this, is going over to lotus.com and watching our Epoch series on Napoleon. We did many videos about Napoleon because Napoleon had a fascinating life. And in many ways, Elon is kind of doing the same sort of thing as Napoleon did. Napoleon came to power after operating within the revolutionary paradigm of the French Revolution and just essentially showed himself to be more capable of winning victories than other people and established himself as, of course, the emperor. And Elon seems to kind of be following this trajectory, actually.
Well, I hadn't thought about that, but he's definitely stepped in and is clearing up the mess in the way that Napoleon did.
But think about where he started. He starts in the Silicon Valley paradigm. Starts, founding PayPal and various other businesses that become massive. And now he's clearly the sort of at the very forefront of this class of people who are operating. And it actually does parallel Napoleon, surprisingly. But anyway, so let's begin with a tweet he put out a couple of days ago, which is, Apple's threatened to withhold Twitter from its App Store after he'd brought back Donald Trump to the platform, who has yet to tweet, but won't tell us why. It's like, now that's impressive because this is a megaphone of 120 million people Elon Musk is talking to. And he knows that this is going to be picked up by every news outlet in the same way that they did with Trump. It's like, oh, great, that's my day's journalism done. I can't wait to do the third segment. Honestly, these people deserve to lose their jobs. But that's my day's work done. And I can clock off and just tell the world that Elon Musk has tweeted something. And so it's a big deal, and it creates a lot of public pressure. And I think it's important to remember that a lot of what happens just in the world is purely based on perception. For example, like the stock market, people think things are going to happen. Oh, the stocks are down, the stocks are up. Why? Because people perceive that the things are the way they are, not because actually anything's changed.
Yeah, it's not the value of the company now, it's what the value of the company is going to be in 3 or 6 or months or 12 months.
Exactly. And nothing, someone can, like Elon Musk has done this himself by tweeting out about Tesla stock. This has caused Tesla stock to tank. It's like, okay, but nothing changed. The number of cars produced did not change. The number of customers for Tesla cars did not change. So it's all about perception. And
can I just expand on that?
Yeah,
because
please,
I think it's a really interesting idea. And I think every gig that you ever get offered, every job that you ever get offered is not based on what you can or can't do.
Yeah.
It's based on what other people perceive your ability to be.
Yes.
And this is why I favour YouTube, the internet and so on against traditional broadcasting, because you'll just have a commissioning editor who decides what you're capable of. And I doubt anyone at the BBC would have given you a gig as a presenter.
They would never given me a job, no.
Yeah, and suddenly you've got a little media empire, and that's because you knew what you were capable of, and in fact perhaps only discovered what you were capable of in the evolution of everything.
I had no idea when I started all of this that I could do any of this, to be honest. But anyway, the point being, it's perception that drives human endeavour, not really actually physically what we do, because it turns out that physically what we do is actually pretty, not easy, but within reasonable bounds, So you can build an electric car, you can take over Twitter, of course you can. But the question is, how do people react to this? And then it's from that perspective, you've got to remember that all the politicians, all of the billionaires, all of the people in charge of all these companies who are making decisions are just people, and they only have the same smartphone that you have to get their perceptions from, which is why places like Twitter have been so dementing for public opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think he recognises the value of Twitter. And you talked about perception. Twitter is where ideas get argued and formed, and where narratives take place. And, it's sort of a standard anthropological thing. Narratives drive humankind, which is, I suppose, perception.
Yep.
And he sees the value of Twitter. And I think it's partly because he wants to make the world a better place, but also because he wants to make money, and often the two things coincide. It's sort of standard invisible hand Adam Smith stuff. But yeah, and it's very exciting the way, and he, you know, Nassim Taleb used to talk about FU money, and you know, you need to have a certain amount of wealth before you can just go, do you know what? I don't care. And if anyone's got FU money, Elon Musk does.
Well, it's the richest man in the world, isn't it? And so you can see the FU money shining through in his Twitter usage, in the memes he posts. He posted this meme and then deleted it. So this is an archive of it. But basically, Elon was complaining that Apple, their App Store is for companies over $1 million. They have a 30% tax on transactions that go through the App Store. So Elon was saying, well, look, this is basically a secret tax on the internet because Apple is something like 50% of the American market share, although it's much smaller in the global market share. And so he posted this, do I want to pay a 30% tax or do I want to go to war? And he chose go to war, apparently, which, again, this is big talk in front of a lot of people. Now, Elon's known for his frivolous sense of humor, and so obviously everyone will understand it in that context. But still, you are essentially ginning up sentiment against Tim Cook in Apple. He did actually tag Tim Cook in a tweet, again, in front of 120 million people saying, what's up, Tim? And it's like, right. So when it comes to perception, if Tim Cook logs on to whatever social media he's got, and he's got literally 1 million messages saying, Tim Cook, you're a dick, that's a perception.
And worse.
And worse. Yeah, that's, yeah. Tim Cook, please talk to Elon, and then it gets just way worse than that. You can see how perception is an important part of a person's self-worth and how they view their peers and how they view their own environment and their business and all this sort of thing. And so these things, I think, are very important.
Now, that said...
Yeah.
You go first. Then
No, you go.
Well, something I was taught by a friend of mine who's a very good businessman, and he's very good at negotiating and so on, is he always said, you don't get what you want if you get too aggro about it.
That's true.
And so he's not attempted to smooth talk this guy. He's just gone straight, and he's just gone straight down the aggro route. Now, maybe that's just a misjudgment, or maybe that's a deliberate...
Well, I mean, that's a great question, because at the end of the day, when you look at it, well, who actually holds the decision-making power with anything? Because, I mean, Apple, they own the App Store. They've got a monopoly on it. They can just take people off of it, and they have taken people off of it. They took Parler off. They took Epic Games off, which is a very large video game company, because they were trying to legally contest Apple's 30% revenue share. And Apple would just like, we're just going to take you off. That's enough. And they can just do that because Apple have absolute decision-making power over what goes on their store because of their property. And really, I can't really disagree with it, really. I mean, it seems unfair, and maybe there are other perspectives I could bring to it in order to make judgments. But from a sort of business perspective, well, that's the case. And so one way of looking at this is, well, Elon's being very cavalier, considering he doesn't really have his hands on the levers of power here. He knows Tim Cook can just be like, no, you're off now. And so why is he being so forthright and public about all of this? And so when Elon Musk posted a video of himself at the Apple campus, and if you can scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's two shadows in this video. So he's standing next to someone who's wearing glasses, it looks like, from their shadow, right?
Yeah.
Tim Cook wears glasses. So what was the text attached to this? Sorry, something just like a nice walk around. Yeah. Thanks, Tim Cook, for taking me around Apple's beautiful HQ. That's interesting.
That's a change in tone as well.
Exactly. That's a change in tone. He also replied to this saying, good conversation. Among other things, we resolved the misunderstanding about Twitter potentially being removed from the App Store. Tim was clear that Apple never considered doing so. That's weird, isn't it? Because the tone is obviously, but I mean, Elon's quite a charismatic guy, and I think people understand that he's reasonable and will deal. He'll talk to people reasonably. But this is a complete change in tone. But also, it doesn't inform us as to who made decisions here, right?
Yeah, I mean that's straight out of the script of a film, isn't it? It's very funny.
It kind of is.
It's wonderful to see how we agree on things.
But who's the mafia boss in this situation, though?
Musk.
Maybe, but also...
But I'm only reading Musk's side of it.
Well, no, we've only got Musk's side of it to read. I haven't found any public statements from Tim Cook about this, right? So it's interesting how Tim Cook has not been...
I don't think he needs attention in the way that Elon does.
Well, precisely. He obviously doesn't. But the point is, there have been two narratives that people have taken from this. It's like, okay, so first thing could be that Elon starts posting all over Twitter and Tim Cook's like, look, come to my office. We're going to have a talk about the relative situation and who gets to make decisions in this regard. And Elon's suddenly like, oh, lovely talk. Oh, everything was resolved. Don't worry, guys. And it could be that Elon has been brought to heel because, of course, he has been incredibly rogue over late. Mm-hmm. And there, he's had some good victories along the way, but there are doubtless a coalition of powers behind the scenes. People like Tim Cook and his, various peers who are like, oh, we've got to do something about this. We can't just have this guy being a madman in front of millions of people and making us look bad. Mm. And so it could be they called him in and said, look, you're going to calm down or else, But I mean, we're not saying we're going to take you off, but, it's a nice social media platform you have there. Shame if something happened to it, right?
Yeah, it's a very credible scenario.
Exactly. Or it could be that Elon Musk took the Napoleonic route and was just, no, we're going to go straight at them as hard as we can, as quickly as we can, and bring the force of our personality and the potential coalition we could bring together in order to essentially overawe and intimidate Tim Cook into being like, look, if you do this, I'll be at war with you. I'm Elon Musk. I'm one of the most influential people on earth. A lot of people support me. There's a huge amount of money behind me. Do you want this fight? And Tim Cook seems to be less of a showman than Elon Musk. Seems to have less of that sort of, will to fight in him. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen a few interviews with him, and he's also incredibly woke and woke.
Oh, he's on the other side of the culture war, is he?
Incredibly woke. He repeatedly saying, "Oh, diversity is our strength and inclusivity and all this sort of stuff." He's constantly saying.
Was he trotting that out, or did he believe it?
I think he believes it. I watched. Okay. I wish I'd got the clip. Actually, I should have got the clip. But there was a couple of years ago. He was giving a big talk in front of a room probably full of Apple employees talking about all of this, and it was just, he obviously believes, because he's gay himself, he came out as LGBT, blah blah blah, so he's obviously a complete believer. And so the two ways of looking at this is like, okay, well, did the force of Elon Musk's personality overall Tim Cook, or did Tim Cook have a sort of Machiavellian Don Cook moment and bring him in, sit down?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I will say this about Apple. When Jobs died, which is 9 or 10 years ago. Yeah. And this was in the early stages of this incredible tech bull market that we've seen over the last 10 or 12 years that kind of ended last year or earlier this year. I thought Apple was going to be a short, or maybe not a short, but there was no longer the same innovative genius at the front, and therefore, should we be buying Apple? But from the point of view of building Apple and increasing its market share and increasing its market cap and so on, Tim Cook, you have to say, based on the share price, has done a good job.
Oh, yeah.
And in the recent tech correction of the last 9 months, Apple is probably the biggest domino that hasn't fallen in the way that some of those other tech companies have.
Yeah.
But you look at Apple and it's basically riding on the coattails of the iPhone, which is a brilliant product. I've got one and Apple own me, and I'm sorry to have to tell you that.
Would never give money to Apple, willingly anyway.
But, every time, every couple of years when I get a new phone, I'm always thinking, do I get the Samsung one? Do I get the thing? And then in the end, it's just, I'll just get the latest Apple one because it's just
You're familiar
less. With it. Yeah. So they kind of own me. But they don't have the same market share. For example, I was in Korea, and you don't see...
It's all Samsung, isn't it?
Yeah, for obvious reasons. But I would say from an investment point of view, there's a long history of tech companies that own a market like Apple does, and then another company comes along and has a better product, and they make Apple redundant. Now, that company isn't there at the moment, but you can rest assured that somewhere that something is being developed that is better.
Elon.
All I was going to say is just Apple needs a new flagship product if it is to maintain the might that it now occupies.
And Elon did again publicly state that, well, if they pull us off the App Store, I will just make a new phone as a competitor to Apple. And as you were saying before we started, Tim Cook was clearly a safe pair of hands for
Yeah.
Apple, right? But Elon Musk is not a safe pair of hands.
No.
He's one of those sort of revolutionary, geniuses who are here to create and innovate.
Yeah, if I want someone to manage my legacy,
Yeah.
I'll get Tim Cook to do it. I don't want Elon Musk doing it.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
his legacy will end up outshining mine,
Exactly.
which is why Cook was trusted with the gig.
And this is why I'm looking at the two very different personalities and thinking, right, did Elon Musk just go down there, march himself down there and say, look, Tim, I'm going to make an even better iPhone than you'll ever make, and it's going to ruin your business if you take us off this app store. And Tim's just like, oh, no, we didn't even consider doing so. I mean, why did Elon tweet that he was told that Apple is considering removing it from the store because
He's
of
not
what...
going to make that up, is he?
No, exactly. It'd be crazy, right? It'd be absolutely crazy. Because, I mean, like, once that sort of idea is in the sort of mix, then it becomes more likely to happen, doesn't it? So it's like, did he go down there?
There'll be a lot of creative genius within Apple,
Oh, yeah.
and obviously Jobs himself. And I don't know how similar in character Jobs and Musk are, but I bet there are some things.
But they're a lot closer than him and Tim Cook.
And I bet you Tim Cook is very good at managing people like that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's exactly right. So Tim probably made some very reasonable requests. Be like, look, can we just not have Nazis? Can we just not have these really terrible things? And Elon being, a sort of centrist, sort of liberal type, he'll be like, yeah, of course, I don't want those things. Why would I want those things? And so, but we're going to have Donald Trump back. We're going to have the president back. We're going to have, the town square has to serve everyone. And Tim probably conceded, knowing that still, he's diverted this rogue army that's come in, and okay, they could come back, but for now they're not, and they're wandering off. We've got it. So who knows? But what I thought I'd do is just have a look at what kind of
crisis management.
Well, that's the thing. It actually looked like good crisis management from Tim Cook. Or it could be that Tim Cook is, the secret mob boss, and Elon is just essentially covering himself to make it look like he's not just being completely slapped. But we don't know. But I thought what might be useful is just looking at who supports Elon Musk. Because actually, Elon Musk has quite a lot of support amongst the sort of tech billionaires. The first one is Jeff Bezos. Now, Elon Musk is not like friends with Jeff Bezos, but they have a kind of public banter back and forth because, I'm the richest man in the world. No, I am, this back and forth, right? And so, they obviously tease each other quite publicly. But when
That's funny.
It is funny, actually. The funniest one, I think, was Jeff Bezos posting something about his wealth, and then Elon Musk just posting a silver medal underneath his post. I mean, it's good bands. It's genuinely good bands. I bet Bezos actually took it fairly well.
I think Elon has someone who writes his tweets for him.
You think so?
Yeah, and
Really?
I think it's the founder of Dogecoin.
Really? Why?
Because somebody told me. I can't remember where I heard it, but that's one of the reasons why
Right.
he likes Dogecoin so much.
Right, okay.
And Dogecoin is basically
Yeah.
meme-tastic.
Yeah.
And so when he posts those quite witty pictures and things like that,
You think somemon's given
Someone's
him
done
that?
that for him.
Right, okay.
he's got writers.
Right, okay. I mean, why wouldn't he? I didn't even think about it. But when Elon said, look, I'm going to buy Twitter and turn it into a homeless shelter, Jeff Bezos seemed to be posting in support of this, in sort of, mimetic support, which is interesting. And then you've got Larry Fink. And the reason I bring this up, the BlackRock CEO obviously controls, God knows, untold trillions of wealth around the world. But this is interesting because it's strange that Larry Fink, who seems to be one of the progenitors of ESG, has decided to start signaling against wokeism. Now, this was at the beginning of this year, so maybe I'm wrong, maybe things have changed. But he said that his so-called stakeholder capitalism is neither political nor woke. It's capitalism driven by mutually beneficial relationships between you and the employees, customers, suppliers, and communities your company relies on to prosper. This is the power of capitalism. We aren't going to be doing woke posturing, is what he said. And that's very interesting because he seems to, I think that they've been, like I said, I think they're behind ESG. If I'm wrong about that, fact check me. But then also you've got the former CEO of McDonald's who has actually formed an anti-woke coalition, start buying into corporations and actively expelling wokeism. Ed Rensi was the CEO of McDonald's between 1991 and 1997, and he's started an initiative to start buying up called the Free Enterprise Project, to start buying up parts of companies and just getting on their boards and just expelling the woke. Which I mean, that's good news, Then, of course, you have like major streaming services like Netflix. Remember when their staff started protesting about the Dave Chappelle special, and Netflix just fired a bunch of them because they lost 200 million subscribers or something. It was 200,000 subscribers, and so they were just like, no, a bunch of you are fired, and they say. As employees, we continue to support the principle that Netflix offers a diversity of stories, even if we find some titles counter to our personal values. Depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
I'm going to make a generalization
Sure.
about two types of mentality and the types of political philosophy that those two types of mentality will have. And you've got the one, we'll call it the Elon Musk type of mentality, who is the self-made businessman. He gets where he is, by being breaking things, but also being a genius, taking risks. And so you've got that kind of risk-taking entrepreneurial type. And often they are the guys who set up the business and they get on by rocking the boat.
Yeah.
And then you get the other guy who gets on by not rocking the boat.
Yes.
So those type of people tend to do better within institutions that already exist. So I think a classic example is Rishi Sunak.
Yes.
He's got where he is by just not rocking anything.
Unlike Boris Johnson.
Well, Boris is a bit more of a boat rocker.
Yes.
And Boris would never have got where he was were they not so desperately in need of it. Anyway, let's
someone
not go
to break
there.
the paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. And Tim Cook is a non-boat rocker. And so those kind of people will get on better in institutions once they're already established, whether it's political institutions or big corporations. And that's why so much of, and the boat rocker will tend to be somebody who favours free market capitalism, risk-taking and all that. And the non-boat rocker will be more in favour of regulation, let's say, and will tend to be more of that sort of left of centre, metropolitan, liberal, that kind of Remain mentality, whereas the other guy will be, more libertarian, more Brexity.
Is it unfair to describe this as a kind of masculine and feminine perspective?
I
don't think it is.
This may be...
Because women, tend towards...
Maybe a little bit, but...
And men tend towards.
Tend towards. And I do think that's a thing that men tend to be more right-wing than women. That's definitely a thing. So you've got those two types of personality, and because Silicon Valley's got so established and so on, and it's so mainstream, that's why it's been so infiltrated. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got the problem of the young who are, broadly speaking, totally brainwashed by the education system, which has also been infiltrated by that kind of mentality and more.
I agree. And so this is why I think it's interesting to highlight these the sort of CEOs who are on the sort of Elon Musk side of this.
So they'll be the guys who made the institutions, whereas the ones who run the institutions will be on the Cook side of the
Exactly. In fact, this is what the Netflix CEO said specifically about Elon Musk. Let's watch this clip.
You're on there all the time. What do you think? What's going on?
I'm excited. Elon Musk is the bravest, most creative person on the planet. I mean, what he's done in multiple areas is phenomenal. His style is different than I'm trying to be a really steady, respectable leader. He doesn't care. He's just out there, But think of a guy who's spending $44 billion. He could have built a mile-long yacht for $44 billion. Okay? But it's not good for the planet, so he's not interested. He's in for.
Do you think what he's doing is good for the planet?
Absolutely. I'm 100% convinced that he is trying to help the world in all of his endeavors, okay? And he's trying to help the world in that one because he believes in free speech and that's power for democracy and that there's an option. Now, how he goes about it, again, is not how I would do it, but I'm deeply respectful, and I'm amazed that people are so nitpicky on him. Yeah, sure, the blue check mark, he's making a mess of some things or not, but it's give the guy a break. He just spent all this money to try to make it much better for democracy and society, to have a more open platform, and I am sympathetic to that agenda.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just what we just said, isn't it?
Exactly.
But it's not pulling any punches.
And that was a massive endorsement.
I'll say.
If someone spoke about me like that, oh God, calm down. I'm not that great.
I've got to get him to review some of my songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so that's pretty wild, isn't it? Like, so I mean, and that's the CEO of Netflix. That's one of the biggest streaming services in the world. 200 million people, something like that, use it. So it's massive, huge cultural influence. Lots and lots of money. All of these people, that they have met and are probably in contact and things like this. So this is what I was talking about, like the perception and the pressure. The way that Tim Cook might seem to find himself, actually, maybe I'm outnumbered here. Maybe I'm actually okay. I might be able to literally, win this battle right in front of me over Elon. But then I might find myself drawn out too much and have everyone else around me go, we're going to pull off your story.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Tim Cook will be a good tactician.
Undoubtedly, but also he'll be a conservative tactician.
Yeah,
right. He'll be the Fabius to Elon's Hannibal. Let's hope it doesn't end with the same way Napoleon and Hannibal ended. Actually, now I say that. But let's just keep going on. Just to quickly finish this bit off. Sorry. So you've got DeSantis and Disney. DeSantis obviously crushed Disney over their special tax status because Disney were woke and they were like opposing his it's the anti-groomer bill, but they call it the Don't Say Gay bill, and he was just like, no, you're done. And so Disney fired their woke CEO, Bob Chapek, which is weird because this came as a surprise, as Yahoo tell us, because they renewed his contract that year and extended it for another 3 years. And so it wasn't that he was due to go or anything. No, you messed up. Boom, you're gone, right?
Yeah.
And so they've brought in...
It's cost them a lot of money.
They absolutely... They've brought in Bob Iger again, who has just come out and said, look, we're literally going to just stop all the woke stuff because this has made us, if you can get to the next one, you can see exactly his statements. We're going to respect the audience. We're going to quiet down the culture wars. We're not going to have disdain of their views. And so he says that the issues have been branded political and doesn't agree that they are political, but doesn't want to make a big deal out of them. And so,
but the fact that he says respect the audience shows that he thinks the quiet majority,
yes,
maybe don't agree with it all.
And you can see that by simply their sales figures. Actually, they put out a film recently. I don't even know the name of it, but the lead character is this gay character, and there are no white people in it, and it's just like, and it was a complete bomb. And so it's like, look, you can be as woke and preachy as you want, but at the end of the day, the market is actually responding to this, and it's responding negatively to this.
Go woke, go broke.
It genuinely is true. It just when you've got massive companies like Disney, it takes a bit of time for the momentum to start wearing off.
I'll tell you something I've noticed, Carl, by the way, just on this subject. You know how sort of ludicrously diverse advertising is in terms of the typical families that they portray don't represent anything like what is the typical. No. And, it's hard to find a single advert that doesn't have somebody, of a non-white ethnic background in it. And so I've always done a lot of voiceovers over the course of my life. And so whenever an ad break comes on, I'm always listening to what voices they use.
Right.
And, the use, one of the reasons I get a lot of voiceover work, or used to, is that...
Shouldn't have supported Brexit there.
I think I've got a fairly sort of anonymous... It's clear, and people trust my voice when they hear it, but it's also neither posh nor down my...
I can't tell where you're from.
Well, I'm a public school boy from London.
There we go.
But it's a sort of middle-of-the-road accent. And so it's... I suppose it's, in a way, it's a bland accent. It's a sort of nothing accent, but it doesn't carry too much identity with it. But, there's a lot of... market research has shown that the man who was the voice of Mr. Kipling, for example, or Orange, got so much voiceover work because people trusted that voice.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, that's me. And when I've been watching ad breaks over every other advert is voiced by Idris Elba. But there's just so much more ethnic and minority, diversity, blah, blah, blah. And voice of, it's always gone young. They've always younged up a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually. You can tell the tone of voice.
Yeah. But what I've noticed happening now is this is just in the World Cup, so I've been watching a bit of telly. There's much less. It's gone young, but it's always done that. But it's gone back to being much more English. Really? When I say English, I mean RP.
Not regional London accent.
Not regional, not ethnic, not diverse, not female, there's
I wonder
obviously a
if-
bit of a pullback going on.
I wonder if they're seeing in their sales figures, like, why is this going down?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Or maybe there's just like, do you know what? We had a whatever voice on it last year. Let's go back to what we did. It
Maybe
worked.
it could be.
Yeah.
Be. But anyway, let's carry on.
There's a definite
'cause
change in trend, though.
That's good to know. The next one is Shopify. The CEO of Shopify is Toby Lutke, who recently sent a letter to the entire staff saying, "We're not woke, stop it," which is great, actually. He wanted to remind everyone that we're a business, and more importantly, a hugely ambitious one. Right? And I'm just going to read his note because it's actually hilarious, and he makes some great points. Right? We are trying to create a world-class product that gives superpowers to the merchants that we are obsessed over, as in the people who sell on Shopify. Everything Shopify does is to accomplish this, and everyone at Shopify should be able to describe how their job through a series of direct or indirect steps furthers this mission. Shopify, like any other for-profit company, is not a family. The very idea is preposterous. You are born into a family. You never chose it, and they can't unfamily you. The dangers of family thinking are that it becomes incredibly hard to let poor performers go. Shopify is a team, not a family.
Wow.
That's a hell of a statement,
I'll
isn't
say.
it? That's very pro-capitalist. Like, it's aggressive. Shopify is not small business. This is, again, major CEOs are just coming out and being like
We
that.
cannot solve every societal problem here.
Exactly. Shopify's worldview is well documented. We believe in liberal values and equality of opportunity. Sometimes we see opportunities to nudge these causes forward, but we do this because this directly helps our business and our merchants, and not because of some moralistic overreach.
Yeah, and he's used the word nudge,
Yeah.
not move or push or something like
exactly. Preach. That's all I'm saying. Not because of moralistic overreach. And so, it's fantastic. He says, this is great as well. We will always have compassion for team members in truly difficult situations, but we need to remind everyone that, like any other competitive team, it matters how you show up every day and contribute to the team's success. Beyond straight performance output, everyone that engages in endless Slack trolling, victimhood thinking, us versus them divisiveness, and zero-sum thinking must be seen for the threat they are. They break teams.
that. Wow.
Oh, that is strong.
Yeah.
And so the next one is the CEO of Spotify, which is Daniel Ek, who has been waging war on Apple themselves because of the Apple Store fee. But Spotify CEO joined Elon Musk in his attack over Apple, filing complaint with the European Commission against Apple, and basically carrying on the crusade. And so this is what I mean, where it's hard because the first impression when Tim Cook is speaking to Elon Musk, it's like, wow, look at that. The big boys come on to say, you're going to have to calm down, Elon. And Elon puts out a very neutral sounding, very compared to what he normally puts out tweet. But actually, it could be that there is a fair amount of momentum against Tim Cook's position.
I'll say the trend is changing. It really is. And just in my own little world, I know I'm very friendly with a businessman who runs a chain of comedy clubs around the country, really good comedy clubs. We're good friends. I did one of my unacceptable songs in one of his comedy clubs. The
Dominic
staff,
does excellent songs, by the way.
the staff didn't know
Yeah.
that I'm friendly with the boss. They made a load of stuff up about me and tried to get me cancelled.
Yeah.
And he was like, what's going on there? I'm not having, bar staff by being offended by what gets said in a comedy club and trying to get the comedians cancelled. I'm just not having that in my comedy
It's
club.
easier to get bar staff than it is comedians, probably.
Probably. And so that was one example. The other example being the change in trend with the advertising voices that I've noticed. And the third thing is, a couple of people who have raised money for a campaign to fight against everything that's going on. I guess it's a PR campaign, but I've been commissioned to write a couple of songs for them. So there's definitely, and I don't know where they've got their money from, but somebody's donated it. And if you've got money to donate to a cause, it suggests maybe not a billionaire, but somebody with deep pockets doesn't like what's going on.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do on the politics of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is the newest one. And if you want to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.